Lake Tahoe's had a lot of great casinos over the years. Dating back to the early 1900s, people said, hey, let's go up to the lake and spend our vacation with the family. Yeah, there's swimming and the weather and scenery are amazing. And then at night, when the kiddies are asleep, we can go to the casino. Let's face it, then, like now, people love to gamble. Casinos came and went at Lake Tahoe like so many summer nights and summer loves. They had names like Tony's, Sky Harbor, Joby's Monte Carlo, Dopey Norman's, and Gary's State Line Club. But the grand old dame of the lake, the Cal-Neva Lodge, held sway over the lake and still stands today. She boasts a long line of suitors, all of whom wanted to own her, from Hollywood types to politicians to mobsters, and in the end, she outlasted them all. The first casino owner was Bill Doyle, but when he showed the little lodge could make money, the owner of the lodge, Norman Biltz, sold the ramshackle place and all the surrounding land to Bill Graham and James MCKAY for $65,000. They were called Reno's sporting men, and I'm not exactly sure why, because nobody ever won any money. Even Hollywood legend Clara Bow took a beating at the Cal-Neva Lodge. She left a bogus check for $13,500 from a bad weekend of roulette, and it bounced like a Super Ball. That was a lot of serious cash for the 1930s. In today's money, that's about $250,000. Graham and McKay plowed their profits back into the property, building cabins below the lodge and facing the lake. Since they were facing swindling charges brought by the U.S. government for swindling and stock fraud, Bones REMMER ran the casino. Top FBI wanted list criminals like Babyface Nelson and Alvin Karpis were seen around the lake and down in Reno. Graham liked Nelson so much he found a house just a block from his own and hired him as a driver and bodyguard. Alvin Karpis and his gang laundered their bank robbery and kidnapping cash at a not too great exchange rate. This crescent seal chip was used at the Cal-Neva Casino in the 1930s. While a dollar might not seem like much today, back then a silver buck could buy you a loaf of bread, a dozen eggs, 8 pounds of potatoes, a sliced ham, 5 pounds of bananas, 5 pounds of oranges, a pound of wieners, a box of cornflakes, and a box of MCKAY soap. Here's a picture from the early 1930s of just how much snow can fall during a winter storm in Lake Tahoe. Highway 40 from San Francisco was finished in 1930, winding its way up the Sierra Nevada mountains to a cutoff at Truckee, where drivers could head to the lake or continue on to Reno. Unfortunately, that new highway wasn't fit for winter travel, and lodges and casinos were only open from May through September. Inside the Cal-Neva Lodge, an Epicurean delight awaited the dinner crowd. Stuffed wild animals adorned the rocks that swept the room. An indoor stream gurgled and bubbled as it ran along polished rocks, and sizable rainbow trout glided past the hungry diners, oblivious to their fate. A small gratuity sent the waiter after your catch of the day. The Cal-Neva's casino itself was popular and pretty. You can see an ornate big six-wheel right down the middle, sometimes called a wheel fortune, with 2 betting layouts across 2 tables at the end of the room. There are also 2 roulette tables, a blackjack table, and a hazard table. On the right-hand side, the closest table is a craps game. And what's really interesting is that the edges are very low, which means the dice could easily bounce off, and also that there are chairs around the game. This is a road down to the Cal-Neva Lodge, right off the circular road around the lake. Out of this shot is the Cal-Neva Lodge and the TAHOE being built to the left. Everything seemed great in 1936. Unfortunately, the roof fell in when a fire broke out May 16, 1937, in the kitchen of the Cal-Neva and spread across the entire lodge. Most of the cabins were saved, and this photo shows one of the volunteer firefighters aiming the mainline fire hose at the fire, while Bones REMMER holds a hose. It's one of only a few pictures where he isn't eating, spitting, or swearing. Yeah, it's a fluke. On the right, still looking dapper in a sports jacket, is Jim McKay with a cigar. The entire lodge was ruined, but Graham and McKay spent $280,000 rebuilding with profits from their bank club in Reno. After all, their club was advertised at the time as the largest casino in the United States. With a workforce of more than 100 people, the lodge was rebuilt in just 45 days, and business boomed on the 4th of July. The fire burnt the lodge down to the cinders, but Graham and MCKAY had plenty of profits from their bank club in Reno. They spent $280,000 rebuilding using a workforce of more than 100 people, and the lodge was done in just 45 days, and business boomed again on the 4th of July. In 1938, Graham and MCKAY were finally convicted for illegal use of the mail and sent to prison. Bones REMMER was in charge again, and he was a tough boss to work for. Warren Nelson, a former partner in the Palace Club in Reno, worked for him at the 21 Club in El Cerrito, California during the Second World War. As Nelson put it, Bones, he might have been the meanest, crudest guy who ever lived. He was basically a pig. This photo shows the boys of summer, with the smiling Bones REMMER in the middle, busting out of his suit. He got a kickback of $500 from his pit boss as a thank you for letting them work the entire season. He was a peach of a guy. The photo to the right side shows the main entrance to the lodge with the circular bar in the background where you could get bombed while staring at the lake. The photo on the left mentions the race book inside. That was a subset of a series of race wires owned by the mob and handled in Nevada and California by Bugsy Siegel. Siegel kept a suite at the St. Francis Hotel in San Francisco, where he worked with people like REMMER and Nick Abelman, who was a partner at the new TAHOE beside the Cal-Neva Lodge. These are close-ups of the $30,000 circle bar inside the lodge. Because of their time in prison, Graham and MCKAY decided to sell REMMER their lodge. He paid approximately $500,000 for the property and ran it for nearly 10 years, during which time he developed a series of interesting tax maneuvers with a local tax expert he found in Reno. REMMER took his job in the pit in the casino as a serious one. He would often walk up behind a dealer on a cold streak and kick him in the ankle. If they made a fuss, he fired them on the spot. The dealers and floor bosses must have been thrilled when Sanford Adler took over. If you ever heard that the Cal-Neva Lodge was in 2 states, it's true. It was built across the Nevada and California state lines, hence the name. Sanford Adler paid a cheap price for the Flamingo Casino in Las Vegas after Bugsy Siegel was killed. And when he tried to run things the way he wanted, Gus Greenbaum and Mo Rosen punched him and tossed him outside the casino. Adler knew the score, so he gave up his gig there and came to Reno, where he bought Joe Zemansky's Club Fortune on the corner of 2nd and South Virginia Streets in 1948. The building was owned by James MCKAY and Jack Sullivan at the time, and they sold Adler for $250,000 in cash. Adler changed the name of the club to Club Cal-Neva. Then he came up to the lake and bought the Cal-Neva Lodge from Bones REMMER, who had some tax issues at the time, amounting to about $800,000 in back taxes, fines, and interest. Paying off that didn't fix the problem completely, and Bones wound up in jail. On March 21, 1955, Adler sold out to a group of investors, including Bert "Wingy" Gruber. Gruber had been in the hotel and restaurant business for years, owning the Park Avenue Steakhouse in Miami Beach. His liquor and meat supplier in Miami was Joe Kennedy, and they had a lifelong friendship, and many in the Kennedy clan enjoyed staying at the Cal-Neva Lodge. John F. Kennedy and his brothers Robert and Teddy spent time at the lodge, and Frank Sinatra was interested in owning a piece of the club where people like that would mingle. The lake was beautiful, the gaming was good, and under a little pressure from the Kennedys and Frank Sinatra, Wingy dropped the price of his lodge to $250,000, which allowed Sinatra to be an equal partner with Chicago outfit crime boss Sam Giancana, who was not a silent partner. He tried to be, but he couldn't do it. Unfortunately, Sinatra and Giancana were known to the FBI, and the FBI had photos. including Giancana mixing with Hollywood types like Dick Shawn, Vic Damone, Mickey Rooney, and of course Marilyn Monroe. The story is a lot more sordid than what I'm mentioning, like the details of Monroe being drugged and having photos taken of her naked with other people. And she died just a few days later of a possible drug overdose. Yeah, maybe, but you can read more about that in the book Mob City Reno, which is available at Amazon. The next disaster at the Cal-Neva Lodge was Frank Sinatra losing his gaming license for having mob boss Sam Giancana on property. Frank also lost his license to run his 9% share of the Sands in Las Vegas. When Sinatra sold out, Warren Nelson's group borrowed enough money to build a nice 200-room high-rise hotel, but he is alleged to have gotten a lot of pressure from mob figures who wanted to help him run things, like the soft count room, where the day's gaming win was counted. Regardless of what exactly went down, Nelson's group sold the lodge right after they finished building. Kirk Kerkorian even owned the property for a short time before he sold to Ron Cloud for $10 million. Cloud liked to take chips out of the gaming trays at blackjack tables and toss them to his cocktail servers, never thinking it was against gaming regulations. And at one point, a cheating device called a bug was found inside a slot machine that kept the machine from ever paying a top jackpot. He relinquished his license and sold the property. Unfortunately for Ron Cloud, he signed bogus escrow papers that showed the buyer, John Perrotin, was paying $10 million more than the agreed upon price. When Perrotin couldn't make his payments and the loan went south, the truth came out, prompting the United States to sue Cloud for aiding and abetting a bank fraud. The jury convicted Cloud on the crime and ordered him to make a restitution of $7.5 million to Hibernia Bank's insurance company. Cloud, of course, appealed. Then Don Bluth purchased the lodge and kept it open for 20 years while specializing in weddings and slowly shrinking the size of the casino. Bluth sold the club to Ezra Namvar for $30 million, and the casino continued to slide into insolvency. By 2009, the casino was making half what it was making 15 years earlier. The financial crisis of 2008 crushed properties around the lake. Namvar was sued by his creditors on the lodge and his other properties, and he declared bankruptcy, which included his bank, Security Pacific, and led to $1 billion in claims from investors. Namvar was often refuted to afterwards as a Bernie Madoff of Beverly Hills, as his creditors lost up to $500 million. He was sentenced to 7 years in prison for stealing approximately $21 million from several clients. The Cal-Neva Lodge has had a series of purchases, sales, and is still trying to get reopened after 10 years. Currently, billionaire Larry Ellison is the sole owner, having purchased the property for $35.8 million in January 2018. Hopefully someday the beautiful lodge will open again.